There's an oversaturation of content creators, YouTubers, Instagram influencers, and TikTokers at the moment. Everyone is making videos with the intention of grabbing your attention in this attention economy. The only issue is there's a finite amount of attention and there's a radically growing number of attention seekers. Another example of this would be in e-commerce. There's also an oversaturation of dropshippers as well. Don't get me wrong, I love dropshipping and I still run my own dropshipping business every single day. But because it's super easy to start, anyone can replicate this business that you're running and compete with you. Realizing these facts doesn't necessarily mean that you should run away from these businesses completely, not compete, and just give up. There's a reason that so many people are doing them. It's because they work. But ultimately, I want to talk about how you can take it a step further in this video. I want to talk about thinking differently and not necessarily following what everyone else does to a T. One of the very first things that I saw success with as an entrepreneur followed this exact recipe, and I wasn't even aware of it at the time. It was about 5 to 6 years ago, roughly, and there was a lot of hype about starting your own Amazon private label product. For the first time, young entrepreneurs were popping up on YouTube videos in their supercars, claiming that they could get rich ordering products from China, slapping their own brand names on them, and then shipping them into Amazon FBA. And I, along with thousands of others, tried the same exact business model. And I was able to launch a few products successfully, but never really got the level of success I was hoping for. It ultimately just came with a bunch of headaches and unforeseen problems that I hadn't been expecting. Plus, every day it got harder and harder because there were so many other people coming into the market and launching products that directly competed with yours. One thing I had learned from starting a few products, though, was a launch strategy where you gave a bunch of coupon codes away on Amazon coupon websites so customers could get your product free or extremely cheap. This would help rank your product higher on Amazon, so you would ultimately start to pick up organic sales when people would search for specific keywords on Amazon. And one day it hit me. What was stopping me from going on these websites as a buyer, getting hundreds or even thousands of these products for free, and then shipping them into Amazon FBA to sell them at full price on the same exact listing? Because my cost of goods was extremely cheap, it was really only the cost of shipping products into Amazon, which came out to about $1 per product. My profit margins were substantial. It could be anywhere from $5 to $100 plus per product, depending, of course, how expensive the Amazon listing was. And from this, coupon arbitrage was born. Now, I don't know if I'm the only person that started this, but I'm certainly one of the first. I taught this to thousands of people for a while, up until private label sellers started to catch on and adapt about a year later. But that first year alone, I did over 6 figures in profit from coupon arbitrage alone. And the reason it worked so well is the exact lesson that I'm covering in this video. There was an oversaturation of private label sellers at the time, and instead of only competing as a private label seller in a market where the opportunity was dwindling more and more each day, I instead asked myself a better question. Keep in mind, I didn't realize I was doing this at the time. It wasn't premeditated, but it did work. I simply said to myself, okay, there's an oversaturation of these sellers, and it seems like more and more people are starting every day. So rather than solely competing with them, what can I do, offer, or build that directly benefits from the oversaturation of these specific sellers? And this is such an important lesson that I've had to realize thinking differently. One of the most brilliant things that I've heard Kobe Bryant say was there's a lot of answers that I don't have yet. And there's a lot of questions that I don't even have yet. And it's so important to ask yourself better questions so your brain can start to search for those answers both consciously and subconsciously. So I'll give you 3 more quick examples of this to really hit it home. As we've covered in the beginning of this video, I'm sure you've noticed too, there's so many content creators now. It's beyond oversaturated, it's extremely competitive, and more people are flooding in every day. So rather than solely competing in this oversaturated market, it might be more beneficial to ask yourself, what is something I can do, start, or offer that directly benefits from more content creators all starting to compete against each other and try to get popular on social media? Now, an example of this would be an editing service. Another example of this might be a service that goes to people's houses and sets up a YouTube studio for them, because a lot of new YouTubers don't understand how to do that. They also don't understand what equipment is best for beginners, intermediates, and more advanced people as well. You could charge something like $1,000 flat fee. You could help them set up the studio and also recommend equipment that they need and help them order it on their dollar. Yet another example of this would be the influx of people that are flooding into dropshipping. Now, again, like we covered before, this is mainly due due to the fact that it's super easy to start and run, therefore it can be replicated by anyone. So rather than compete against everyone else, it might be better to ask yourself what you can do, offer, or build that will directly benefit from this oversaturation of dropshippers. A perfect example of this might be to build a software or a Chrome extension like ZDrop or List Perfectly, which I always recommend. Another example of this might be to license the best products that you find, right? Sell product lists for hot selling products. And finally, the last example of this is the fact that everyone, especially young kids now, are flooding into the make money online space. It seems like everyone's dream now is to become a multi-million-dollar TikTok influencer that makes their money online, travels the world, and has tons of followers. And so rather than trying to compete in that oversaturated market that's inevitably going to see millions of people fail, it might be better to ask yourself, what can I do, offer, or build that will directly benefit from the oversaturation of people trying to make money online? And a no-brainer answer here is to go back to maybe the tried and true method of making money offline. We're already seeing examples of this from industry to industry. For example, in Australia currently, there's an overabundance of lawyers and doctors since that was a desirable high-paying job that people aspired to do. And now there's a shortage of skilled laborers and blue-collar workers that can ultimately demand more money for their jobs. Keep in mind, I haven't done any research specifically into any specific business models to recommend for you, but I'd be willing to bet that if you started a service-based business of some kind offline in the coming years, it would be much less competitive than ever in the coming decades as more and more business owners retire and not as many young people are popping up to fill that void. I'd also be willing to bet that normal 9-to-5 jobs that might have been more appealing like 10 to 20 years ago will have much lower interest and much lower competition in the coming decades as more and more young kids are trying their hand at making money online. So these are just my thoughts on thinking differently, asking yourself better questions, and not following everyone else blindly into a red ocean of hungry sharks. That is not to say that you can't succeed in any business like this. Again, I want to hit home that there's a reason these are so competitive. It's because they work. I just want to touch on the opportunity out there to come at things from a different angle and maybe start to play more chess and less checkers.